Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Battle Through the Heavens Part 218 based on novel. So let's start. Xiao Yan Ge, you should ask anyone in this group of yours who does not possess the strength of a Bansheng to leave. Numbers are not important in trying to subdue the purifying demonic lotus flame. Zano turned her head and spoke to Xiao Yan after seeing many human figures rush into that shattered space like a swarm of locusts. Xiao Yan nodded. Although these elite individuals from the Alliance could be considered top-tier experts, many of them were covered in perspiration just outside of this realm. Some of them even had to unleash their Do Chi to resist the high temperature. If they were to recklessly charge into that space, less than 10 of them would make it out alive. All of you should head back to the Alliance first and guard it well. Yao Lao turned around and cried out in a deep voice. Understood. Upon hearing this, many experts from the Alliance immediately sighed in relief, appearing as though they had been relieved of a great burden. They hurriedly replied before withdrawing in a quick and orderly formation. Although it was somewhat regretful that they wouldn't enter the realm and catch a glimpse of the demonic flame, it was better to be regretful than to lose one's life. With their strength, they were clearly aware of their chances of survival if they were to barge into the extremely dangerous space. Ha ha, brother Xiao Yang, we will enter first. Hua Xian faced Xiao Yang and cupped his hands together from a short distance away. After which, he moved with Elder Hua Yao, who was leading the group. Their group took the lead to hurry into that cream-white light cluster. Finally, they disappeared. We should also get moving. Xiao Yang clenched his hand and smiled in a somewhat anxious manner after seeing those experts from the ancient clans rush into the light circle. Xiao Yang Ge, it is rumored that the purifying demonic lotus flame uses a person's emotion as a source to form the demonic flame within one's body. The moment the demonic flame appears in one's body, even one's soul will be incinerated into nothing. Hence, regardless of what you see after entering the space, you must try your best to remain calm without feeling any joy or sadness. You must try to control all emotions. Otherwise, these emotions will attract the demonic flame. Zana nodded and reminded everyone in a solemn voice. Oh! The expressions of Xiao Yang and Yao Lao changed upon hearing this rumor. The purifying demonic lotus flame was far too mysterious. Even they, as alchemists, did not really know many details about it. It was unexpected that this purifying demonic lotus flame was able to use human emotions as a seed. Such a mysterious method was indeed worthy of its demonic flame reputation. Understood. Everyone should be careful. Let's get moving. Xiao Yan slowly exhaled and ceased uttering any other unnecessary words. He waved his sleeve and his body took the lead to charge forward. He turned into a ray of light that rushed into the light circle with lightning-like speed. Zana and the rest followed close behind him. Xiao Yang's skin suddenly became dry as he charged into the cluster of light. Passing through the light circle was an instantaneous task. After his eyes were momentarily dazzled by the light, he discovered that the surrounding space had changed. What a terrifying temperature! The first impression that the transformed space gave Xiao Yang was that it was like a furnace. His eyes swiftly swept around him, only to discover that he was currently in a mysterious space with cream-white flames all around. Even someone like him, who had swallowed 5 types of heavenly flames, felt unusually hot in this place covered by cream-white flames. This heat was emitted by the cream-white flames. A thought passed through Xiao Yang's heart as the heavenly flame within his body slowly surged out of him before wrapping around his entire body. Only then did the heat that caused one's blood to boil significantly weaken. Is this the realm where the purifying demonic lotus flame is sealed? Where is Zana and the rest? Xiao Yang frowned as he looked at his empty surroundings. He should have entered this realm with Zana and the rest. Why was it that he was the only one in this place? Xiao Yang tightly knit his brow. His body was suspended in the air and did not dare to make even the slightest contact with the cream-white flames. These flames might not be the actual body of the purifying demonic lotus flame, but one should still not underestimate them. Moreover, this entire space was filled with mystery. This calmness hid a murderous intent, so it was always best to be a little careful. I should leave this place first. Xiao Yan's eyes swept around him. His toes pressed on empty space. Only then did his body shoot forward. This area made him somewhat uneasy, but first, he needed to find the others. Xiao Yan's body swiftly rushed through the sea of fire. The high temperature that saturated the space caused his skin to emit waves of piercing pain despite having the protection of his heavenly flame. Even the air in this realm was steaming. An indescribable desolation covered the entire land. Xiao Yan flew forward for nearly 10 minutes, but his expression gradually became ugly as he continued to fly. There was still no end to the sea of fire even after this 10-minute journey, and he had not come across any other human figures. It was as though this sea of fire was endless. Just how large is this realm? Could it be that we have been sent to a different area when we entered this space? However, I did not seem to feel any sign of being sent anywhere when I enter. Xiao Yan tightly knit his brows. His face was filled with his thoughts and an expression of loss. There is a voice in front. A soft voice was suddenly emitted from a short distance in front of Xiao Yan while he was thinking things over. He immediately felt a slight joy in his heart. His body moved as he hurried forward, but he had just traveled for some distance when he suddenly stopped. At this moment, there were 3 black figures standing in the air a short distance in front of him. Their eyes revealed sinister expressions that were filled with a ridicule while they looked at him. Chief of the Hall of Souls. The 3 black figures were the Hall of Souls trio from outside. It was unexpected that they would actually appear in this place. Moreover, from the looks of their appearances, it seemed that they had been waiting for Xiao Yan. Why are all of you here? Xiao Yan demanded in a deep voice as he stared at the 3 of them. The dou qi within his body quietly began to circulate as he asked. Nothing. We are here to let you have a look at something. The chief of the Hall of Souls slightly smiled. Waves of black fog suddenly surged out of his palm. The black fog churned before turning into a somewhat illusory figure. Xiao Yan felt as though he was struck by lightning as he looked at the figure. He muttered, "Father." Xiao Zhon. The person who had been pulled out by the chief of the Hall of Souls was surprisingly Xiao Zhon. However, Xiao Zhon was only a spiritual body. Yang? Xiao Zhon's body trembled after hearing Xiao Yan's voice. He lifted his head, and his eyes looked at the skinny young man with disbelief. Xiao Yan, there is only one fate for opposing our Hall of Souls. The destruction of your clan. An indifferent smile was lifted on the face of the chief of the Hall of Souls. His hand slowly landed on Xiao Zhon's head as he said in a faint voice, "Since we are about to capture you, there is no use for him to continue living." Stop! Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly turned blood red after hearing the chief of the Hall of Souls' voice. The chief of the Hall of Souls coldly laughed when he heard Xiao Yan's roar. He clenched his hand and Xiao Zhon's soul was forcefully shattered. It turned into light particles that scattered apart before they vanished because of the terrifyingly high temperature. Xiao Yan was dull as he watched the light spots disappear. His body trembled. A terrifying murderous intent wildly swept out from deep within his heart. A strange smile was lifted on the face of the chief of the Hall of Souls after having sensed that wild murderous intent in Xiao Yan's heart. Both of Xiao Yan's eyes turned blood red. His breathing became as heavy as a bull while he stared intently at the chief of the Hall of Souls. He took a step forward. However, his body stilled immediately as his foot landed. Waves of cream-white flames suddenly erupted from a countless number of pores around his body. The terrifying flame started to wildly rage within his body. Demonic flame. The sudden intense pain emitted from within Xiao Yan's body caused him to regain his sense of reasoning. His heart was immediately startled as he hurriedly lifted his head, only to realize that the Hall of Souls trio had vanished. This is bad. I have been tricked. Everything here is an illusion to stir one's emotion. This scene caused Xiao Yan to feel startled. He suddenly recovered and finally understood the strangeness of the whole situation. The demonic flame might be powerful, but no one is in control of it. It isn't so easy to incinerate me. Xiao Yan clenched his teeth. His hand seal was rapidly changed as his new heavenly flame, which HSD been formed from the merger of the 5 types of heavenly flames, began to circulate. It wildly spread to every part of his body. The cream-white flames endured for a moment before beginning to be forced back in defeat an inch at a time because of the fierce retaliation from the heavenly flame within Xiao Yan's body. Finally, the flames were forced out of Xiao Yan's countless pores. Xiao Yan only sighed in relief after the cream-white flames were forced out of his body. He was covered in perspiration. It was fortunate that his resistance to fire was quite high and that his physical body was strong. Otherwise, this trick would have caused the meridians in his body to turn to dust. It is indeed worthy of being the demonic flame. The illusion it creates is not inferior to that of the Bodhisattva ancient tree. Xiao Yan rubbed his cold sweat away. A thought passed through his heart as the heavenly flame within his body quickly covered his eyes. After the flame surged up, the world in front of him immediately began to change. The cream-white sea of fire vanished. A cream-white fog that was around 100 feet in size replaced it. At this moment, there were dozens of people swiftly flying in the same spot within this fog. The bodies of some of these people had already been surrounded by a cream-white flames. Finally, they turned into ashes amid a miserable screech. Xiao Yan's eyes swiftly swept over this cream-white fog. After which, he understood that those illusions should be caused by this mysterious fog. Teacher? After having swept his eyes around, Xiao Yan paused them on an elderly figure a short distance in front of him. This figure was Yao Lao, but Yao Lao's face was filled with pain. Vague cream-white fire seedlings had even surfaced on his body. Clearly, this was the prelude to being incinerated by the demonic flame. Xiao Yan's heart was filled with shock as he stared at the burning cream-white flames on Yao Lao's body. He naturally understood just how difficult it was to expel the demonic flame that burned within one's body. If he didn't possess 5 types of heavenly flames, he would have ended up suffering serious injuries from the demonic flames earlier. Although Yao Lao was an elite dosheng, he no longer had a heavenly flame guarding his body. He would be seriously injured if the demonic flames were allowed to invade his body. Xiao Yan's body reflexively moved while his heart was feeling shocked. He appeared beside Yao Lao in a flash. After which, his palm suddenly pounded against Yao Lao's back. A low cry was also suddenly emitted from his mouth. Xiao Yan had mixed a spiritual fluctuation within this cry. The sound wave that was mixed with this fluctuation was transmitted into Yao Lao's ear. It violently collided with Yao Lao's soul, causing his face to pale. His tightly shut eyes were also suddenly opened at this moment. Yao Lao, who had opened his eyes, looked at Xiao Yan beside him. He continued to pant through his mouth. A moment later, he finally wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said, "Thus purifying demonic lotus flame is terrifying. It is unexpected that it purposefully creates illusions to stir one's emotions to attract the flames that will burn oneself. If you had not warned me earlier, I'm afraid that my fate would have not been pleasant." Xiao Yan bitterly laughed. His eyes swept around him as he said, "The fog in this place is a little strange. Let's leave this area first. Where is Ancestor Hui Yun and the rest?" Yao Lao frowned and asked in a worried voice. The demonic flame realm was far too mysterious. It was fraught with fatal danger. Even an elite dosheng would face a continuous tribulations upon entering it. I looked for them earlier. There are no signs of them in this area. Zana and the rest have also disappeared. Xiao Yan shook his head and voiced his thoughts. They are most likely with Zana, Yang, and the rest. That group is powerful, and it should not be difficult for them to escape the illusion. Yao Lao nodded. Even if he wanted to save them, there was nothing he could do in this strange place. The only thing that he felt fortunate about was that he did not bring a large group in. Otherwise, all of them would have already perished. Let's go. Xiao Yan waved his hand. His eyes glanced at those people still sinking into the illusion before they swiftly rushed out of the fog. He did not act out of goodness and rescue every single one of them. Most of the people here were after the purifying demonic lotus flame. They could be described as his competitors. Xiao Yan did not wish to see his kindness bring trouble for him in the future. Xiao Yan and Yao Lao escaped from the illusion and did not remain in this area. After a couple of minutes of flying, they managed to charge out of the area surrounded by fog. Xiao Yan and Yao Lao felt their bodies become a little lighter after they escaped the fog. They turned their heads and looked at the strange cream-white fog. Xiao Yan sighed in relief while feeling some lingering fear within his heart. Xiao Yan Ge. A joyous voice was emitted from a short distance away after the two of them hurried out of the fog. Xiao Yan lifted his head and saw a large platform suspended in the air a short distance in front of him. There was a large white door at the end of the platform. At this moment, Zun'er's group was clustered on the platform. Their eyes were filled with joy as they looked at Xiao Yan and Yao Lao, who had charged out of the fog. Xiao Yan slowly landed after seeing Zun'er, Yang, and the others. He exchanged glances with Yao Lao and a flame suddenly surged into his eyes, but the area in front of him did not change. They are not an illusion. Xiao Yan only sighed in relief after seeing that nothing had changed. He smiled, asked, "Are you all right?" "We're fine." Zun'er's group swiftly hurried forward. She smiled and shook her head before exclaiming, "It is unexpected that the purifying demonic lotus flame is already able to release the nightmare heavenly fog. It looks like its strength has greatly improved over 1,000 years. Nightmare heavenly fog." Xiao Yan was startled. It is a fog that can cause a person to descend into an illusion forever. This was a unique ultimate skill of the purifying demonic lotus saint. It is rumored that the purifying demonic lotus saint once unleashed this skill and covered an entire city within it. The people in the city felt as though they had lived for a couple of centuries. Only after the fog scattered did they suddenly realize that the 100-year experience was merely a dream. Gu Nanhai faintly smiled before sighing. It is rumored that the purifying demonic lotus flame wasn't able to use this skill 1,000 years ago. It is unexpected that this time around, it seems like this trip is indeed filled with danger. Purifying demonic lotus saint, Xiao Yan recalled the light cluster after hearing this name. The light cluster should have been created by the purifying demonic lotus saint, but the thing that surprised Xiao Yan was that the light cluster, which reacted to the purifying demonic lotus flame, had become quiet after entering this realm. Where are the rest? Xiao Yan's eyes swept around everyone. He looked around, only to discover that there was no one other than them on this square. This realm is the world of the purifying demonic lotus flame. We have landed in its hands the moment we entered that crack. Where we will be delivered will depend on its intentions, Zun'er explained. It has purposefully allowed us to come together. This realm is extremely mysterious. Earlier, I tested what I could do. If I forcefully attempted to break out of this area, even I would suffer a great backlash. This place is like an extremely tough prison. It is impossible to break it. Gu Nanhai shook his head. His eyes looked at the large tightly shut door and said, "According to what the ancestors in the clan said, the same situation also occurred back then. If we walk through the large door, we will naturally be able to see the purifying demonic lotus flame. However, there will be many obstructions behind the large door. We must overcome them if we wish to arrive at the purifying demonic lotus flame. This place has been set up by the purifying demonic lotus flame. It will likely not be easy to forcefully charge through it." Xiao Yan frowned and remarked, "This is the territory of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Even we can only obey its rules before can find its actual body." Gu Nanhai faintly laughed. He was about to continue saying something when the surrounding space suddenly fluctuated. A terrifying temperature slowly appeared around them. "Be careful." Gu Nanhai frowned and cried out after sensing what was happening. Of course, his reminder was unnecessary. At this moment, everyone had already become cautious. Their eyes wearily looked at the many distortions in the space around them. The realm of the demonic flame was far too mysterious. They had to be as cautious as possible. Bang bang. The space around them became more distorted before numerous cracked lines appeared. Wave after wave of cream-white flames swept over from the cracks. Soon after, many human figures with a cream-white flame around their bodies surged out from the many cracks like floodwater. In the blink of an eye, the sky had filled with these fire human figures. These human figures were covered in a flame. All of them held a long fire spear in their hands. Their emotionless eyes stared at Xiao Yan's group. Xiao Yan's eyes were filled with shock as he stared back at the many fire human figures. He was surprised to discover that these people possessed real bodies and their auras were all quite powerful. Be careful, they are all fire slave, experts who have been refined by the purifying demonic lotus flame. They are another form of a puppet. Jiyu Nanhai spoke in a deep voice after seeing these fire human figures appear. Roar! The tens of thousands of fire human figures let out a violent roar after Jiyu Nanhai's words sounded. Their bodies moved in unison as they rushed towards Xiao Yang's group from all directions. Their momentum was truly earth-shaking. Xiao Yang frowned upon seeing this human tide rush forward with a ferocious momentum. He reached out with his hand and a terrifying force spread. 100 fire human figures exploded. Zana and the rest also unleashed attacks while Xiao Yang did. Everyone present was an elite Dosheng. Their attacks were naturally extremely powerful. Those fire figures were turned into nothing a bunch at a time, but regardless of how ferocious Xiao Yang's group's attacks were, there was still an endless number of fire slaves surging out of those cracks. There was no end to this killing. It is pointless to continue this slaughter. We can only head inside. Jiyu Nanhai cried out in a deep voice. Xiao Yang frowned. He mused for a moment, nodded, and then said, "Let's go." Xiao Yang's toes pressed on the ground after his voice sounded. His body rushed forward. The fire slaves blocking his way exploded when they approached within 100 feet of him. The group began to easily charge through the fire human crowd. All of them threw their own palms that ruthlessly smashed onto the large door. Bang! The large door suddenly cracked apart from the combined attacks of so many experts. The endless fire slaves halted the moment the large door broke. They remained suspended in the sky, crowded together. Let's go. According to the ancestors of the clan, the demonic flame is located at the end of this demonic flame hall. Jiyu Nanhai cried out. Yao Lao's group immediately shifted their eyes to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang slightly frowned. He glanced at the endless fire slaves behind him and then looked at the area behind the large door. After a momentary silence, he nodded and said, "Let's get going." Jiyu Nanhai also inclined his head after hearing Xiao Yang agree. His body moved, and he took the lead to head through the large door. Zana and the rest followed behind him. Xiao Yang knit his brows as he looked at the many figures rushing forward. Remaining here would mean facing the endless fire slave army. It seemed that it was only possible to escape this situation by continuing on. For some unknown reason, Xiao Yang's heart vaguely felt an unease. This demonic flame realm was far too mysterious. Cream-white flames filled one's eyes within this spacious hall. Many fire human figures stood straight-backed in this nearly 10,000-foot large square hall. They did not emit any sounds, but an extremely terrifying aura saturated the hall. That aura merged together and transformed into a large fire dragon that lingered over the heads of these fire human figures. There was a killing intent surging from it. Xiao Yang's group studied the formation in this hall from a corner. Xiao Yang's brows were involuntarily knit. This was not the first time he had seen such a situation. Ever since they had entered that large door, Xiao Yang's group had charged through 3 halls similar to this, but the further they progressed, the fire slaves they faced became stronger. Based on the senses of Xiao Yang's group, every single one of these fire slaves in front of them possessed a Dozun strength. 1 Dozun was not worth mentioning in the eyes of Xiao Yang's group, but when this number increased to 10,000, even an elite Dosheng would have to brace their attention, especially when these fire slaves cooperated with each other perfectly. Their combined strength was extremely frightening. Elder Gu, when will we reach the end if we continue charging on like this? Xiao Yang frowned and involuntarily asked. Even though their group was quite strong, the Do-Chi within their bodies would be exhausted sooner or later if they continued charging through these endless halls. The natural energy within this realm was mixed with the demon flame. No one dared to simply absorb it. Even an elite dosheng would not be able to endure if one's exhaustion was greater than one's intake. We have no other choice. The demonic flame realm has become an extremely dangerous place after being managed by the purifying demonic lotus flame for thousands of years. Otherwise, others would not have failed to capture it during these thousands of years. Gu Nanhai shook his head and replied. Xiao Yan's frown deepened upon hearing this reply, but he also felt helpless. This demonic flame realm was far too strange. After charging to the next place, the previous place would strangely disappear. It seemed as though there was a large invisible hand quietly removing the places behind them, forcing them to head forward. Did those ancestors from your clan also break through all these obstacles when they had come to this place in the past? Xiao Yan asked. Yes. Is the purifying demonic lotus flame stronger 1,000 years ago, or is it stronger now? Xiao Yan's eyes flashed as he asked. Although the purifying demonic lotus flame 1,000 years ago was not captured by anyone, it still suffered a serious injury, but 1,000 years is more than enough time for it to fully recover. Moreover, from the looks of the nightmare heavenly fog, the current purifying demonic lotus flame is stronger. Gu Nanhai hesitated for a moment before responding. So it's like this. Xiao Yan lifted his head and looked at the dome above the large hall. His eyes slightly flickered. It seems like this purifying demonic lotus flame is planning to play with us like dolls. Everyone knit their brows after hearing these words. Being played with by a heavenly flame was really something that was difficult to accept. Let's continue to walk. Xiao Yan mused for a moment. After which, he gently waved his hand. His voice had regained its cool. Everyone was startled upon hearing this command. They quickly nodded as their bodies moved and attacked at the same time. The group easily crushed the fire slave army in the hall in an instant. After which, all of them turned into light figures that appeared at the end of the hall in a couple of flashes. After which, they destroyed another large door and entered it. They continued this bitter attempt to overcome the obstacles during this subsequent period of time, but the tasks were extremely monotonous. Each large hall had the same fire slaves. The only difference was that the strength of the fire slaves increased the further they ventured. In the last clash, even Ancestor Huiyun had suffered some minor injuries while fighting the fire slave army. Although the rest were slightly better, their expressions had gradually become grave. Their continuous charges was little different than having clashed with many elite doshengs, causing them feel exhausted. Bang! The enormous door of the hall was shattered by the expressionless Xiao Yan with a palm strike. Another large hall appeared as the stone fragments shot out. Everyone felt a weariness in their hearts the moment they saw the large hall. They did not know how long it would take for these various obstacles to come to an end. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over the large hall. However, he quickly emitted a "huh" sound because he discovered that this large hall was not packed with fire slaves. Have we passed through all the obstacles? Zhano also discovered the change. No, Gu Nanhai shook his head. His eyes were locked on something in the middle of the large hall. There was a somewhat skinny figure standing at that spot. Strangely enough, no flame lingered around his body. Both of his eyes were tightly shut as a mountain-like aura spread from his body. 4-star Dosheng. Gu Nanhai's and Zi Yang's bodies gently trembled at this moment. A grave expression slowly surged onto their faces. Although the two of them were also 4-star Doshengs, that skinny figure in the hall was still a little stronger than them. Is this also a fire slave? Xiao Yan asked in disbelief. Just how terrifying was this purifying demonic lotus flame? It was able to turn a 4-star Dosheng into a fire slave? He can barely be considered a fire slave since he possesses an intelligence that belongs to him. Compared to those fire slaves that are controlled by the purifying demonic lotus flame, he possesses his own autonomy. Gu Nanhai spoke with a grave expression. Looks like this is the final hurdle. We should be able to reach the location of the purifying demonic lotus flame once we pass through this. This won't be easy. Xiao Yan frowned as he remarked. Even with their lineup, it would not be easy to defeat a 4-star Dosheng. There is no way to retreat now that we have come here. Yang spread her hands as she spoke to Xiao Yan. After which, her pretty eyes looked to Yu Nanhai as she spoke in a somewhat lazy tone. The two of us should attack together and finish him off as soon as possible. I am completely irritated. Yu Nanhai did not reject her suggestion. He understood that it would be difficult for him alone to deal with this skinny man. Pay attention to the surroundings. Xiao Yang gently waved his hand as everyone quietly rushed into the hall. They separated and surrounded the skinny human figure. Yang and Yu Nanhai landed in front of that man. That human figure's tightly shut eyes slowly opened when everyone landed within the large hall. A pair of dark black eyes that were void of emotion were revealed, but they clearly contained an additional liveliness compared to the fire slave they had met earlier. Nevertheless, those eyes were still icy cold. Both of his eyes merely stared at Yang and Yu Nanhai in front of him. Neither party spoke, but the atmosphere had become more tense. Xiao Yan only managed to get a good look at this skinny human figure after approaching him. The skinny figure was wearing ordinary clothes, and his face seemed to be completely stiff. There was no discernible expression on his face. Both of his eyes were cold and indifferent, appearing like ice that had not melted in 10,000 years. Bang! The ground of the quiet hall suddenly trembled as the skinny figure gently clenched the empty space in front of him. A strange 10-foot large blood-red axe appeared out of nowhere. This skinny figure appeared a little comical beneath the outline of that giant axe. The people present could clearly sense the terrifying energy the skinny figure hid. This person is really powerful. Xiao Yang's expression was grave. He would never have imagined that such an expert could be controlled by the purifying demonic lotus flame. Yu Nanhai frowned as he looked at the giant blood-colored axe. It seemed as though he was thinking of something. Both parties did not say anything unnecessary after the blood-colored axe appeared. 3 pairs of eyes glanced at each other. Wild wind suddenly blew as 3 figures brutally collided together. The earth-shaking ripple that erupted caused Xiao Yang's group to hurriedly pull back. The 3 figures in the large hall flashed with dazzling speeds. Sparks continued to shoot out as the 3 figures flashed and appeared. The unusually strong hall began to crack an inch at a time. Many cracked lines began to spread. Xiao Yan's group had already withdrawn by a great distance. They were in no position to interfere as the 3 elite Doshengs exchanged blows. Just the remnant ripples caused them to feel awed. Even with Yang and Yu Nanhai's combined attacks, that skinny figure holding the large blood axe did not give in. The large axe danced like the wind as a bloody scent spread across the hall. Although he was powerful, Yang and Yu Nanhai were not ordinary people either. Yi's skinny figure gradually fell into a disadvantage as the fight continued. However, his occasional retaliation still caused Yang and Yu Nanhai to appear a little miserable. If it was a one-on-one fight, these 2 individuals would be no match for this mysterious person. The 3 figures suddenly made contact in the middle of the large hall. A frightening sound swept apart like a huge wave. The figure with the blood axe staggered and flew backwards. His feet stomped against the ground of the large hall, forming over a dozen deep pits. Roar! That skinny figure's indifferent eye suddenly revealed a crazy heat after being forced back. A low roar was emitted from his throat as a powerful light suddenly shot out of his brow. A symbol slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes as the skinny person's aura suddenly soared. Xiao Yan's eyes immediately paused on this strange symbol. After which, he seemed to have been struck by lightning as his face became dull. This is Xiao Clan's clan tattoo. The symbol that appeared on the person with the blood axe was the unique clan tattoo of the Xiao clan. Why did this person possess the Xiao clan's clan tattoo? This video will end here.